Good morning from Kiev to everyone who's joining us. We are broadcasting again from our office in Kiev this morning, and I am joined by Kristian Andersson, who is the CEO of SEB-Bank, Swedish bank, here in Ukraine. Kristian is also the chairman of our Banking and Financial Services Committee. Before we get into this, into what we want to talk about, banking in Ukraine, what are the options for foreign companies? There is this little story I want to share. Kristian spends a lot of time here in Ukraine, but he went home to Stockholm just on Monday, I believe, and he was honored for being a reserve officer in the Swedish Navy for 30 years.
True.
So congratulations on that.
Thank you very much, Ryan.
Kristian, I think this is an important service you are giving to Sweden and Europe. We have agreed to talk about three topics. Number one being SEB in Ukraine, history and strategy. Number two is banking during the war, a story of resilience and restrictions. And number three, the 1 million hryvnia questions, how to finance operations in Ukraine. You as audience, you are welcome to ask questions during this meeting using the chat function of Zoom. So let's get into this. Kristian, welcome.
Thank you very much, Rainer. Pleasure to be here. A few words about SEB history and strategy then. SEB, for you who don't know it, stands for Skandinaviska Enskilda Banken. It's an old institution from Sweden from 1856. It's the Wallenberg family that is behind it. It's quite a well-known family in Scandinavia with a lot of interest in many companies like Ericsson, Electrolux, Saab, SEB, SKF, etc. And we came to Ukraine in 2005 by acquisition. We bought a bank that was called AHK Bank. Later on, in 2007, we bought another bank called Factorial, based in Kharkiv. And at that time, the strategy was to be a universal bank. We had 110 branches spread out over the country. Obviously, when the financial crisis came in 2008, when the Lehman Brothers situation happened, and the market here basically collapsed with bad loans, the whole sector. And we had a discussion, should we leave? Because some international banks left at that time. But we took the decision to stay, but with a different setup as a pure corporate bank. So we sold the old bank. It was sold in 2012. It took some time to find a buyer and to sell it. The same day, we bought a new bank, which was just a license. Mm-hmm. And then we transferred around 50 clients that we wanted to keep to the new entity, found new premises, etc. And since then, since 2012, we are here as a corporate bank, and this business model has worked well. The strategy is rather limiting, but it's clear. SEB has certain countries we call our home markets. It's the Nordic countries, it's Germany, it's the Baltic countries, it's UK, and lately now also Netherlands. When we are outside of these countries, like in Ukraine or in Poland or United States or Singapore, in these countries, the strategy is to service what we call our home market clients. So the clients that are clients of SEB in Nordic countries or Germany, our strategy is to help them here in Ukraine, in this case. So it's a strategy that means that we will never become a very big bank here because we focus on our clients. But we think we do that in a good way, and the business model works very well. So that's a little bit about our strategy and history here in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you. Then let's move over to the other topics, and let's look at banking during the war.
Yeah.
Resilience. There is a story in this, and then of course there is there are quite a lot of restrictions for both Ukrainian and foreign entities here in Ukraine.
Yeah, restrictions are mostly related to currency legislation and these kind of things. I'll come back to that. I just want to mention about resilience and what happened here when the war started, I mean, for the banking sector. I think, first of all, I want to say it has worked extremely well. I mean, the payment system has been working the whole time in Ukraine. We see now, I mean, we have central banks from all over Europe coming here to study what was done here in Ukraine because they are impressed of how well it worked. When the war broke out, they did three things very, very quickly before the market started, basically. One is that they locked the exchange rate to the dollar, so they got a fixed rate. This was extremely important, I think. Otherwise, I'm afraid that the hryvnia would have collapsed, basically. The second thing they did was that they prohibited the cross-border transactions to stop the outflow of money. They had exceptions. They had a list that was called critical import goods. So to buy these critical imports, you were allowed to transfer money abroad, but only for these goods. And the third thing was that they made some limitations on cash withdrawals for cash from the machines or from banks. These were extremely important in the beginning. Later on, there came more. I mean, it was a moving situation where they had amended these regulations many times the first couple of weeks. Both added things, they released some things, they added more critical import goods. This list became longer. So it was like a moving material, so to say, with these restrictions. But the purpose was obviously keep foreign currency in the country as much as possible to avoid panicking, that all the money would flow out. Also, try to avoid panicking with cash. I mean, this never happened. I mean, Visa card and MasterCard worked well throughout the war, but I think they were afraid in the beginning, so they established some limits on how much cash people were allowed to take out. And I think this worked very well. We were in very close contact, as all other banks, with the central bank during the first couple of weeks. We also communicated with each other, especially the foreign banks. We had many Teams meetings where we spoke to each other. I think the central bank MBU showed a great degree of flexibility the first couple of weeks. There were certain things like we told them that we need help with the mobilization. It's not working. We need to keep our key persons if this should be able to continue to work, the payment system and the banking system. They raised their hand and took the helm in that. They produced a template and said to the banks, please fill in all your key persons and send it to us, and we will speak to the military. After this, it worked. We got our key persons reserved. There were also other things. We pushed on MBU very much to saving data. When the war started, it was not allowed for banks to save any data outside the borders of Ukraine. And we were very nervous because most banks had their servers here in Kiev and maybe a backup facility a little bit outside Kiev. And Russians were coming very close to Kiev. So we pushed MBU very much and said that please allow us to save the data somewhere else. And 8th of March, they changed this law and said that from now on, the banks are allowed to save data in cloud environment from during martial law plus 2 years. And this is still valid. So this was also very key for us, that we immediately started to transfer data up to cloud environment and were able to feel much more secure when we have the data outside of Ukraine, because now everything went well, but we didn't know that in the beginning. I mean, the Russians were very close. So I think all the banks had meetings internally, and three things were in focus. I think everybody had safety of their own personnel as priority one. We had that as well. We had people, we took people to Poland, female employees. Anyone who wanted to were welcome there, and we helped them to find apartments. Other people, men especially, that could not leave the country, many of them went to Western Ukraine. And some people decided to stay in Kiev as well. I mean, it was a mix. And we used evacuation. We used an organization called International SOS to evacuate some people that were sitting in bad locations. The other thing was saving the data, as I mentioned. That was also very key. And the third thing was to communicate with clients and keep the bank up and running. And clients were a little bit in the same position as us, that their employees also moved west. And I can say what clients demanded, our clients at least, which is primarily international companies, what they asked for in the beginning was primarily access to their account information, because nobody remembered to take the token to access the internet bank with them when they drew west. And also many companies needed short-term loans in local currency because they wanted to provide their employees with some extra money. And not everybody had that in cash at the moment. So we did quite a few extra loans as well in the beginning. But overall, it worked very well. And I would say that there was a couple, three things maybe that, in my opinion at least, that made it work as well as it did. And the first one was COVID. Because of COVID, everybody was prepared to work remote. If we wouldn't have had this, I think it would have been chaos, to be honest. Now everybody had their laptop, and they knew how to connect and work remote. The second thing was the actions taken by the central bank here in Ukraine. They showed to be very flexible when the war started. This was very important. I would say, I don't know if they have somebody listening here, but I would say normally they are not so flexible, but when the war started, they actually was. So that was very important. And the last thing was also the attitude of the people, the Ukrainian population. I mean, our employees, as well as many others from other banks as well, I think they were very determined that this should work, and society should not be affected. It should work as normal as possible. And they put in a lot of efforts to, I mean, people were sitting doing payments in shelters and from their computers, and they did just a fantastic job, I would say. And not only in our bank, I mean, it was the same in the whole sector. So that's a little bit about resilience. When it comes to restrictions, they made a lot of restrictions, and they had something called regulation number 18 in MBU, which they changed many times. I think there is 60, 70 versions of this. And they made it very tough from beginning, and then they started to release gradually. They, for example, made it possible to repay certain type of loans, ECA covered loans. This came a couple of years ago already, because from the beginning, everything was prohibited basically. And now, especially 10th of May this year, they made a lot of further easing of restrictions. So when it comes to loans and so on, I think now it works relatively well. Companies are allowed to repay also older debt. The one that remains, I think, is for dividends. And this is something that international companies usually ask about as well, especially if they are maybe considering making an investment here. It's not an advantage when they ask about dividends that you have to tell them that no, you have certain restrictions here. You are allowed to take out dividends on profits that are generated after 2024, but you're limited by 1 million euro equivalent per month. So depending on the size of the company, this might be an important factor. But I think it also scares companies a little bit, at least international companies, that they don't look so much on the details of the restrictions, but just the fact that there is a lot of restrictions on dividends or capital flows in general. That is not good. It's not helpful, because I think it makes at least some companies more reluctant to invest money here. So I think we expect continued easing of restrictions, but they will do it in small steps, I think. And this is very important also, because if you look now on the banking market, it's very liquid. It's a lot of cash in the banking system. And not so much loans. Demand for loans is increasing a little bit, but it's still relatively low, I would say, or very low. And that is two reasons for that. One is that companies have a lot of cash that they can use instead of taking loans, because they have not been allowed to, if it's international companies, they have not been allowed to transfer it home. And the second thing is that many companies are waiting with investments also because of the war. I mean, they want to see a more stable environment. So today, the banking sector is quite profitable. I would say it's very profitable. Profit are mainly generated by deposits, not so much by loans. This has also led to that the central bank has imposed 50% tax on banks the last 2 years. I don't think it's so good. I can understand the rationale, the reasoning, because they think it's fiscal money. Banks are earning money on placing it with the central bank or with the government bonds and things like this. But
sounds like an easy business.
Exactly. But that is right now. I mean, situation changes very, very rapidly, and it is not so long ago when the banking sector was under distress here in Ukraine after the revolution and so on. I've been here a long time, so I remember that as well. And then there was nobody talking about helping the banking sector or things like this. This I didn't experience. But now, when it's a little bit profitable, now we are very quick to impose extra taxes. But we will see. Hopefully it will stop now. I think it will last as long as we have martial law, but that's my personal opinion. If you ask regulators and authorities here, they say it will stop now, basically, and not be a third year. But let's see. They can change.
I have one question about the restrictions. It is sometimes said that the restrictions on transferring dividends abroad is also a factor in the investments that we have seen by companies. So the rationale being, if you cannot transfer the money abroad, you will just invest it in Ukraine.
Yeah, some companies do that, but I think it depends, of course, on the size of your company and in what kind of industry you are. Many companies try to use it for investments in Ukraine. Some companies has no chance to do that because they earn too much money. I mean, even if they invest, it's not at all comparable with what they earn, so to say. So they still build up a lot of cash here. And especially some international companies, their headquarters are also reluctant because of the war. I mean, they want to wait. We have clients that have had direct hits of missiles in their factories. I mean, their parent companies are still here. They want to continue to be in Ukraine, but they are not going to invest in the factory until the war is finished, that they know that there is not a new missile coming after they rebuild the factory. So some of this is just standing. I mean, it's and I had discussions with some of these parent companies. I can understand that as well. I mean, as long as the missiles are flying, I mean, it's going to be a lot of reluctant parent companies to make investments here, unfortunately. But it's natural, I think.
I'd like to remind the audience of the possibility to ask questions. We have another 10 minutes left, one topic also left, but if there are questions, please ask them. My question to my team, I'm not sure I can see the questions once they're coming. I can? Thank you. Great. I think the question of this of the cash cushion is quite interesting. I think it's not known really abroad that there is a lot of cash in this economy, that companies are keeping cash because they are waiting for day number one.
Yeah, I think that's very true. They have no alternative because they are sending home as much as they are allowed to send home, and the rest is staying here, or they keep it here on purpose, and they are waiting for day one, as you say, when these missiles will stop flying, and it will be a more secure environment for investments. I think we are also waiting for that, and what we believe that the central bank will do is that they will not take away these existing restrictions like in one go. I mean, they will continue to do it in small steps, which I think is very wise, because otherwise you never know what could happen. It could be some shock to the banking system or the economy. So I think so far, I think they have done quite well in the way they have released these restrictions. You can always argue about certain smaller things that could have been made different or faster or whatever, but in general, I think they have done quite well and should be quite proud of what they have.
Yeah, well, it looks like a very professional central bank they have here in Ukraine.
I think they should be happy what they have done.
We have two questions that have come in. Number one is, you have mentioned that companies are reluctant with investments to a certain extent. The international community and the Ukrainian government want to attract more FDI. Are we on the right way to attract more FDI?
Yeah, I think we are on the right way, or Ukraine is on the right way. There are certain obstacles. I mean, it's not a surprise that, I mean, the war as long as the war looks like it does with the missiles and bombings, etc. I mean, this is an obstacle to many investments, and the companies are very reluctant to go in here. What we see instead is maybe local investments, Ukrainian companies investing in the sense that they buy equipment from abroad. We have seen some wind parks recently where Danish companies have been involved as a supplier, Vestas, and Ukrainian company DTEC has been the investor, and they have gotten financing from abroad. In that case, from Denmark, from the Danish government, basically, who guaranteed it. But it's very hard to say that could it be better to create a better foreign direct investment environment? I would say yes. I mean, with taking away more restrictions, but do it in a orderly way and not in one go. And also, it's not only restrictions. I think it's also, we hear from parent companies from many of our clients that they wait. As long as missiles are flying here, they are not going to invest in bigger factories and things like this. So I think that is a big hurdle as well, unfortunately, because that one is more difficult to do something about.
Okay. So we have two more questions. The one question about artificial intelligence I would leave to you both. I will get you both together. Number three, I think I feel that I can answer this question. Why are companies reluctant to invest? Well, there is a war.
Yeah.
and the war creates that kind of uncertainty, and this is the overall problem. And there's not much you can do about it. I think it is nice that we have the investment guarantee, but we have the investment guarantee, and then we still have a war.
Yeah.
This is basically it, seen from an outside perspective. We have only 4 to 5 minutes left. That's why I would like to turn to the third question, but we can take the other questions that are coming in as a follow-up to this meeting. Number 3 was how to finance operations in Ukraine.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very good question because, as you mentioned, that's my opinion as well. When we speak to parent companies of our clients, which is mainly German and Scandinavian companies, they say, just like you said, there is a war. I mean, okay, it's fine that there are guarantees and things like this, but it's still a war. I mean, things might get destroyed if we build it there, etc. So I think it's a natural reluctance to invest as long as that's going on. What we do see is we have seen very inventive ECAs giving insurances for financings, big financings. That in particular, I would say the Nordic countries, Denmark, Finland, Norway, more than Sweden, to be honest, but Denmark, Finland, Norway, they have their ECAs have different programs. The Danish is most aggressive and most active, where they cover 100% of the risk. So basically, if a Danish company sell equipment to Ukraine, the Ukrainian company can take a loan that is 100% covered by Danish government risk. So then you can find banks that are willing to do this financing, etc. So this is very good, and we see big amounts, and we see long tenors. We see loans for 12 years under this guarantees, and we see big amounts. I mean, this wind park I mentioned is around 330 million euros, so it's big amounts. Finland has a little bit different setup, where they have Ministry of Finance here in Ukraine as a borrower, but then it's directed to Ukrainian companies that buy equipment from Finnish companies. So you have different variants of this, but they are all good, and I encourage everybody to look into this in details, because they can be very, very useful. I think with German, you have this system with the investment guarantees from the government, which is also very, very, very good option to look into. It doesn't suit everybody, but it suits some companies. So I think all these things has to be explored, and there is going to come more of these all the time, because now it's a little bit like focus is, I think Ukraine has support from Western Europe. There is no question about that. The question is more like, how will they make this support? What kind of tools will they provide? And some is doing it directly government to government. Mostly Sweden is such example. They are not so good in involving the private sector, but some countries are very keen to involve the private sector. And we have seen that, like with guarantees in Germany, we see it in Denmark, we see it in Finland and Norway as well. So I think just to follow this development and keep in contact with AHK when it comes to German tools, because there will come new tools as well. I'm 100% sure, because it's a lot of thinking going on in this direction now. So I think that is when it comes to investments from abroad. When it comes to companies that are already here, if it's international companies who needs loans, I think that's not the problem to get here. But you will be asked for giving support from your parent company, either in form of a guarantee or a letter of comfort or some kind of support. Would typically be asked for, I would say. We would ask for that as example. I think other international banks as well would ask for that in most cases. but with that, they would get financing. And I think when it comes to Ukrainian companies, I think state-owned banks are quite big part of the sector, and some of these are quite active. If you look at both Privatbank and AHK, they are quite active and interested in finding good borrowers. Sometimes the problem for the local companies are that they are not transparent enough, or things like this. We still have some issues in KYC and AML issues that are not clear. But it's getting better and better. But this is, of course, very important that they clear this up, and that there is not a lot of question marks on that.
Time's already up, but I see one question that I think might be interesting for all the listeners. Are there new products? Well, the question is, which new products SEB is introducing to deal with a challenging market? We might also take this as a broader question. Does the banking system has the banking system developed new products for customers in these times?
I would say I cannot say that we have done something new product as such. We see much more use of the certain type of products, like the letter of credits, for example. It's much more used now than it was before the war. We do see, if you look on the international banking market as well, what you could not see before was this 100% cover of export credits given from different ECAs in European countries. This is new and very specific for Ukraine, I would say. Most of these countries have established some kind of Ukraine fund with a certain amount. And this is unique because this was not possible before. So I wouldn't say, I couldn't say that we see a lot of new products, more maybe different. We see more use of certain products than others compared to before. A letter of credits is one of the examples like that. We see more use of that. Obviously the market is flooded with deposit products because that is very interesting for the clients. But it's not a new product as such. I mean, it's. I saw one question also about staffing here. What I read, where if that is problematic, it's a good question because our people have returned to Ukraine. We kept them 2.5 years in Poland, the ones who wanted. After that, we called them back. So everybody returned. We still have 2 people that are there on their own behalf. And we are fine with that, but they do not receive support from us, financial support to stay there, but we keep them as employees.
So no additional payments for higher cost in Warsaw or Germany or Sweden, wherever people are. Yeah.
No, we stopped that after 2.5 years and said that now we would like people to come back. If somebody wants to stay anyhow, it's fine, but then you have to cover that yourself. And we have 2 such people who have decided to do that in Warsaw. Okay. But all the rest have returned. But I want to say, because the first sentence is staffing problematic. Staffing is very problematic because when you lose people and people leave, it starts to get very difficult to find new people in the market, I would say. And we have a certain number of people that have been mobilized as well. And it takes a long time to find replacements, especially in certain functions. So this is something that I worry for the future because it's getting harder and harder to find good people, and more people are mobilized. So this is a big risk and worry.
And in your case, or in some cases, it's very, very specialized trained people that you're looking for. So the market is very narrow. and
exactly.
therefore also prices go up.
Yeah, prices go up, which I think is fine as long as it's possible to find someone. But sometimes it's not even possible to find somebody.
Thank you very much, Kristian, for an exciting journey through the banking world in Ukraine during war times. We have overdrawn by 5 minutes, but this just goes to show that this was interesting stuff that we talked about. I'm going to put you together with the person that asked about AI.
Okay.
We can have an exchange. I think more or less we have covered the question. Thank you all for being with us today. And before you leave us, or I think right after you leave this, you will have a feedback form. We want to get better with each of these events. So please tell us how we did, and if you have any suggestions about, for example, the next AHK Ukraine talk. I wish you all a good Friday and a good weekend from Kiev.